David brought his pregnant Chloe home. He said Chloe was pregnant and told me to sign the divorce agreement. When we divorced, I demanded $1 million as compensation and gave him an azoospermia diagnosis report. Turns out Chloe's child wasn't his. My name is Sarah. We had been married for 5 years, and today he brought his mistress home. He told me, Chloe is going to have a baby, and no one can sign the surgical consent form for her. To prevent any issues, let's get divorced first. David winked beside him, and Ethan quickly chimed in, Aunt Sarah, Aunt Chloe is so pathetic, let's just help her out. Didn't you teach me to be responsible? You should step up and set an example for me now. Seeing that I disagreed, the two of them ganged up on me, accusing me of being heartless. Ethan even declared that if I didn't agree, he would never speak to me again. I wasn't surprised by David's reaction, after all, she was his Chloe. But even Ethan, whom I had cared for day and night for 3 years, sided with an outsider. My heart felt dead. I wiped away my tears and agreed to their demands. The 3 of them clapped and cheered. David thought I didn't know about his affair with Chloe, that he believed he was going to be a father. In reality, he was the one who couldn't have children. Dinner is served. To celebrate Chloe's arrival, David, who hadn't cooked in 5 years, personally made dinner. I sneered and went back to my room. Seeing me leave, Chloe leaned on David's shoulder. Is Sarah angry? Maybe I should go. Don't worry about her. She always has that dead look on her face. Besides, you're pregnant. What if it upsets the baby? Just stay here. Let's see who dares to wrong you. David put his arm around Chloe's shoulder, glaring fiercely at my room. Aunt Sarah is so cold-blooded. She never had any sympathy. I was weak, but she always made me eat plain vegetables, practically wishing I would die. They spoke without the slightest hesitation, acting as if I were their enemy. I was so angry, I just laughed. Ethan's father died when he was young, and he grew up with his mother in a small town. When he was 5, he got seriously ill and almost died at home. His mother saw he wasn't going to make it and just ran off. I was the one who brought him to the city and arranged for a hospital. During his treatment, I stayed by his window day and night, terrified that something might happen to him. Because his illness required a restricted diet, and I didn't want him to feel unfairly treated, I, someone who loves meat, ate plain vegetables alongside him every single day. For 3 years, I cared for him meticulously, more than even a biological child might receive. And what did I get for my efforts? Coldness and a lack of sympathy. My heart felt like it had plummeted into an ice cave. That last trace of attachment I felt vanished. The 3 of them finished dinner happily, completely ignoring me, and cleared the table immediately. After washing the dishes, David knocked on my door. Chloe is pregnant, and the other beds aren't comfortable. You should go to sleep upstairs. Calling her Chloe already? They weren't even bothering to hide it anymore. I had no energy to argue with him and went upstairs without looking back. We lived in an upscale neighborhood, in a 3-story house that my parents left me. In the past few years, with my financial support, David had started a company and transformed into Mr. Chin, the boss. As soon as he got a taste of being in charge, he couldn't behave himself. Men really shouldn't have money. The housekeeper had taken time off and had thoroughly cleaned the entire house/estate before leaving. The bedding upstairs was also freshly changed. Just as I lay down, Chloe updated her social media post. In the picture, she was lying on my bed, holding David's hand. Ethan was beside them, smiling and giving a peace sign. 1 big one, 1 little one, 2 warm lit. Loose stoves. It's so good to have you. At the end, she added 3 hearts. That social media post was meant for me. Claiming ownership after taking over my home? Whatever. I didn't care anymore. This jerk, you want him, just take him. I opened my contacts list and found a number I hadn't called in a long time. I've made up my mind. Do you still mean what you said before? A few seconds later, a slightly hoarse voice came through the phone. I'm overseas. I can't be back for a couple of days. Early the next morning, there was a knock on my door. I originally thought David was calling me for breakfast, but it turned out I was mistaken. At the doorway, little Ethan stood in front of them, looking up at me bossily. Seeing me come out, Chloe deliberately tightened her grip on David's arm, her eyes filled with smugness and provocation. So, have you thought about the divorce? Don't worry. We'll remarry after Chloe has the baby. David's expression was completely flat as he spoke. I looked at their linked arms, then at the divorce agreement in his other hand, and couldn't help but find it laughable. Remarry? Are you treating me like an idiot? Don't misunderstand. Chloe's hormones are out of whack because of the pregnancy. She needs close physical contact with someone to feel secure. You wouldn't understand, you've never been pregnant. Seeing me look at him, David offered a half-hearted explanation. Whatever. I don't care what you do. As for the divorce, I have no problem as long as you leave with nothing. This is what I decided last night. You want to be with Chloe? Fine. But don't even think about anything else. No! Chloe was visibly panicked. After saying that, she immediately turned to David, signaling him to refuse. Seeing this, I was even more certain she was only after David. Too bad. The David she saw as being on top of the world was just an empty shell. The house was premarital property and had absolutely nothing to do with David. The company he had looked profitable, but it couldn't withstand any real trouble. If there were disputes because of the divorce, it would crumble instantly. She thought David was a goose that laid golden eggs, but in reality, he was all show and no substance. Uncle David works his tail off day and night to support you sitting around doing nothing at home, but you want him to leave with nothing? Your heart is truly black. In my opinion, you should be the one to leave with nothing. What kind of decent person spends tens of thousands on a useless bag? You've been bleeding Uncle David dry all these years. You need to give back all the money you spent, or we'll call the police and have you arrested. Ethan pointed at me, getting more and more agitated as he spoke, all the while hitting me repeatedly with his little fists. I finally understood why he hated me, despite how good I had been to him. It dawned on me, he thought all the money was his. No wonder he always tried every trick in the book to stop me from buying things. He was feeling protective of his money. David and I had no children. If it weren't for this, the estate/assets would truly have been his. But unfortunately, there are no ifs in this world. He thought choosing David was the right move, unaware that he, like Chloe, only saw David's glamorous side. Sadly, their calculations would all come to nothing. David was a typical opportunist. Don't let his current boss facade fool you. The moment there was any trouble, he'd reveal his true colors instantly. Slap! Once I understood why, I didn't hold back at all and slapped Ethan directly across the face. Furious, I pointed at his nose. I paid for your medical treatment, I paid for your school, and you want to call the police on me? Whose heart is black here? Sarah, if you're upset, take it out on me. How can you hit a child? If it's not working, I'll leave. Even living on the streets would be better than taking this abuse. Chloe Kn. And pulled Ethan into her arms, looking so distressed you'd think she was his biological mother. Sarah, what exactly do you want? Won't you be happy until you've driven Chloe away? David's face was grim. It was the first time he had called me by my full name since we got married. I could tell he truly adored his Chloe. What do I want? What do you think you're doing? I saved his life, I raised him for 3 years, and this is how he treats me? What's wrong with me slapping him? Is that wrong? And you, Chloe, do whatever you want. Don't put on a pity act here. You're pregnant and not married, and you don't even know who the father is. You deserve to be living on the streets. Meaning David's gaze, I didn't flinch. I had figured it out, I couldn't show these 3 people an ounce of pity or sympathy, or I would just be pushing myself into the abyss. Ethan is just a child. What if he said something wrong in the heat of the moment? As for Chloe, she was drunk that night, so what if she doesn't know who the father is? All we're asking is for you to sign a divorce agreement. We even told you why. Ethan was right, you truly don't have an ounce of sympathy. My words provoked David. As he spoke, he raised his hand above his shoulder, almost ready to swing a punch. Normally, when he got angry, I would back down. Not this time. I just stared back at him, unblinking. David bent down to the 2 of them. Let's go out and have some fun. We'll go to the amusement park, have a seafood feast. We won't stay here and take this crazy woman's abuse. The 3 of them left, walking out decisively. I, on the other hand, drove to the hospital. I wanted to prepare a surprise for David when we divorced. Around noon, Chloe and David both updated their social media posts. In the photo, David was carrying Ethan on his back, and Chloe's head was resting on his shoulder. The three of them were holding a king crab each, flashing peace signs, smiling as happily as could be. The caption was even more explosive. This is a family of 3. No, 4. There's a baby in the belly, too. When the company manager saw it, he commented, "Mr. Chin, you and your wife divorced?" He followed it with 3 exclamation points, showing his shock. In his view, you wouldn't post a picture and caption like that unless you were divorced. Just a matter of a couple of days. Seeing this, I gave a cold laugh and called the company directly. Half an hour later, David called. "Sarah, what the hell do you want? Why did you freeze my card? Do you know how embarrassing that was when I tried to pay? Were you trying to humiliate me in front of Chloe? How did I never realize you were so vicious?" David's roar came through the phone. The humiliation had driven him completely insane. To this, I simply replied with 3 words, "Opportunist." I wasn't sure if he was provoked by the word opportunist or if he genuinely had no money left. That afternoon, he called me dozens of times. But as soon as his calls stopped, I received a photo from Aunt Mary in accounting. It was a screenshot of a credit report. David had been forced to take out a loan totaling $100,000. The money had been transferred to his personal bank account. It looked like I needed to finalize the divorce quickly. If I waited any longer, I had no idea how many more debts he'd rack up. Since I was sure Chloe was only after money, she would keep trying to get more in the coming days. The little money David had wouldn't last her long. Having made up my mind, I arranged to meet with Aunt Mary, the accountant, that evening. There were some things I needed her cooperation with. Aunt Mary and my parents had been old friends for decades. I trusted her implicitly. Aunt Mary and I talked for a long time. By the time I got back, it was already 9 o'clock. We would have talked longer if it hadn't started raining suddenly. I parked the car, and the moment Ethan rushed towards me, furious. "You old hag! How dare you freeze Uncle David's bank card? That's all Uncle David's money. You get to spend it for free, and you're still not satisfied? I'm going to beat you to death today." As Ethan said this, he grabbed a slipper from the floor. Just as he was about to throw it, his eyes met mine. Seeing the murderous look in my eyes, he suddenly froze in place, clearly remembering the slap he got that afternoon. "Forget it. You've already taken your anger out on your clothes and bags. You get off easy today." The moment he said that, my mind went numb. My clothes and bags weren't important. What mattered were the heirlooms my parents left me. I didn't dare think about it further. I didn't even stop to take off my shoes and rushed back to my old room. But when I opened 2 closets, they were both empty. "Where are my things? I'm asking you, where are my things?" I ran back like a madwoman, but Ethan's face was full of triumph. "Tell me, where are my things?" I had 0 patience. I took 2 steps forward and raised my hand. If he didn't talk, it wouldn't just be 1 slap, countless more would follow. Up on the top floor balcony. Ethan shivered and quickly pointed up the stairs. Hearing this, my heart went cold. I glared at David and Chloe, who were sitting by the table watching the show. My things weren't a lot, but an 8-year-old child couldn't have moved them all. This was their revenge. It was raining outside, and my parents' heirlooms were still out there. I didn't have time to settle scores with them. I rushed to the top floor balcony, but the sight before me stunned me into silence. All of my belongings were scattered across the entire balcony like trash. Some had even fallen downstairs. I frantically searched for my parents' wedding dress and suit. But when I held them in my hands, I saw the suit had been cut into small pieces, and the wedding dress was ripped beyond recognition. Seeing my parents' heirlooms ruined like this, I instantly lost all my strength and collapsed onto the ground. In the heavy rain, I sobbed uncontrollably. These were the most precious things my parents had left me in this world, and they had ruined them like this. All the other things were fine. Only these 2 items were destroyed. Only David knew how much they meant to me. This must have been his doing. I was furious. I wiped away my tears and was about to go downstairs and confront them, but the balcony door had been locked at some point. I slammed against it a few times, my shoulder throbbing. I took out my phone to call for help, but because I had been crying for so long, the phone was waterlogged and had shut off. I shouted for the neighbors, but in the heavy rain, my voice sounded incredibly faint. Plus, the houses in the neighborhood were far apart. No one noticed me at all. The night rain was cold. Before long, I started shivering uncontrollably. I found a coat that was already soaked, put it on, and crouched in the corner. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and the rain poured down on the balcony. It turns out that when your heart is completely frozen, there are no tears left. At 3 in the morning, the night security guard saw the scattered clothes downstairs and found me, close to passing out from the cold. The guard quickly called for help. Soon, the balcony door was opened, and a group of people rushed in. "Honey, how did you get so frozen? You should have just called us to open the door," David said, moving to help me up. I summoned my last bit of strength, pushed his hand away, and then looked at my shoulders, which had already turned blue. "Sarah, should we call the police?" The security captain's expression was serious as he took out his phone. I didn't answer. I glanced at David beside me, who was still trying to act concerned, then my gaze fixed on Chloe standing in the doorway, wearing my pajamas and looking utterly triumphant. "Please take me to the hospital." I decided against calling the police because it would be pointless. They had planned everything. When the police arrived, they would place all the blame on Ethan. An 8-year-old child isn't held criminally responsible. That's why they dared to be so fearless. Using this incident as a starting point, the most that would happen is that Ethan would be sent back to the small town, which is exactly what they wanted. After all, David thought the child Chloe was carrying was his. Rather than keeping a nephew who might compete for the estate/assets later, it was better to find an opportunity to get rid of him. Before they destroyed my parents' heirlooms and locked me on the balcony, I had planned to give them a way out. It was that bit of mercy that gave them an opportunity. Why did it take so long to find her? If it had been 2 more hours, she would have gotten hypothermia. "What kind of family member are you?" At the hospital, after examining my condition, the doctor reprimanded David. How was I supposed to know she was on the balcony? Besides, whose fault is it if she didn't call out? Dragged to the hospital in the middle of the night, David was annoyed. If it weren't for me, he'd be sleeping soundly with his Chloe. But technically, he was still my husband. With something like this happening, he had to come, no matter how unwillingly. "Go pay the bill." The doctor didn't want to argue and handed the bill to David. "Give it to her." "I don't have any money." David stepped back, showing no intention of paying. I forced myself to gather a little strength, took out my wallet from my pocket. "Could you please pay this for me?" The security guard from the neighborhood had also come. He took the wallet and quickly ran out of the hospital room. I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already noon. The security guard was dozing at the small table next to the bed, but David was long gone. "Sarah, you're awake. How are you feeling?" The sound of me getting up to get water woke the guard. He opened his groggy eyes, clearly still a little worried. I smiled. "Much better. Thank you for bringing me here." Seeing that I was okay, the guard smiled and handed me the wallet he had been holding protectively. From his demeanor, it was clear David had tried to get the wallet from him. I borrowed his phone and dialed a number. "Emily, bring that bag over. And also bring 50,000 in cash." I told her where I was. About half an hour later, a smartly dressed young woman walked into the hospital room with 2 young men, carrying large bags and packages. "Sis, what happened? Why are you in the hospital?" She put down the flowers and fruit basket and looked at me with a worried expression. "It's nothing, just a small issue." "Did you bring the money?" Hearing my question, she placed 5 stacks of cash neatly on the table. "Thank you for bringing me here. Take this money. I probably wouldn't have made it through the night otherwise. This money is for the security guard who brought me here. He said it was just part of his job and wouldn't accept it." "What are you doing?" Just then, David came in with Chloe. I looked coldly at Chloe. "It has nothing to do with you. It might not concern me, but this money is David's earnings, isn't it? You're just giving it away without even consulting him. Is that appropriate?" In Chloe's eyes, this money would eventually be hers. Every penny I spent pained her deeply. "His earnings? Are you sure about that?" I sneered and turned to David. David's face was furious. He hadn't expected me to expose him in front of Chloe. "While 50,000 isn't a huge amount, it's still our joint marital property. You should have at least told me." Perhaps uncomfortable under Chloe's gaze, David finally managed to stammer out that sentence after a long pause. Seeing this opportunist still trying to save face, I just laughed. Besides the house/estate, my parents had left me $15 million. All these years, the company's operations and our daily expenses had been paid for with that money. I honestly didn't know where he got the nerve to say that. Leave now, and I might let you keep a little dignity. I didn't care about burning bridges, but I was worried that if I said too much, Chloe might leave him. That would make the divorce more complicated and wasn't worth it. All right, 50,000 isn't a huge amount. We really should show our gratitude. Chloe, hospitals have viruses. It's not good for you and the baby. Let's go back, David said, trying to pull Chloe away. They hadn't come to see me. They were here for Chloe's prenatal checkup and just dropped by to look in. Perhaps Chloe had originally planned to mock me, but I didn't give her the chance. Where's that rare Hermes Birkin bag, valued highly? Let me see it. Seeing them turn to leave, I spoke up at the right moment. David, being a man, didn't know what I was talking about, but Chloe, being a gold digger, would know what a white Birkin was. Sure enough, when she heard the name, she whirled around. Under her astonished gaze, the young woman beside me put on white gloves and carefully took a beautiful white bag out of a box. The protective film was still on it. This was a brand new, unused white Birkin. This bag was designed in the style of the Hermes headquarters building. It was not only beautiful but also held significant meaning. At its peak, this bag had been resold for nearly $3 million. I turned to look at Chloe. Seeing her expression, which was one of pure agony, put me in a great mood. How much is it? I'll pay by card. Sis, you're a regular customer of ours. We'll let you have this white Birkin for $1.7 million. Adding the extra $50,000, the total is $1.75 million. Hearing the price, I happily took out my bank card. No! You can't use your card. If you dare use it, I'll call the police. Seeing me about to pay, Chloe rushed forward frantica. LLY but was stopped midway by the people the young woman brought. Are you kidding? Something worth over $1 million. If she scratched it, the consequences would be unthinkable. At that moment, Chloe's heart was bleeding. This was over $1 million. In her mind, that money was already hers. Even if it meant burning bridges, she had to stop this transaction today. I sneered, call the police? On what grounds? Sarah, what exactly are you trying to do? Are you not planning to stay married anymore? David's face was grim. Over $1 million was no small sum, and he was also feeling the sting. Who isn't planning to stay married? What I don't understand is, I'm spending my own money, what are you two complaining about? You know perfectly well whether or not this is joint marital property. Don't make me spell it out and make things unpleasant. Seeing me about to expose his secrets, David clenched his teeth in anger. The company is mine. If you agree, we'll get divorced. David laid his cards on the table. No way. Why should you only get the company? The money and the house should all be yours. She should be the one to leave with nothing. Chloe jumped out and flatly refused. She was after David's entire estate/assets. There was no way she'd be willing to let me take such a large portion. This is decided then. I'll draft the agreement, and we'll sign this afternoon. David's face was grim. After speaking, he tried to pull Chloe away. I'm not leaving. Why should she get the house and the money? I'm not going anywhere until this is clear. Chloe started throwing a public tantrum. At that moment, she was completely different from her previous sweet and innocent act. Chloe, do you think he intends to give me all this? Let me tell you clearly, if I make a scene, forget the house and money, he won't even get the company. Do you understand? If not, go ask him why. Chloe wasn't stupid. She easily caught the signal in my words. David didn't explain, just meaningfully pulled her away. On the way out, the two of them were still arguing, with Chloe asking him why. As for how David explained it, that was none of my business. Sis, it seems your husband's mistress was completely in the dark. After watching the whole drama unfold, the young woman beside me said with a smile. I smiled noncommittally. I planned to pay an extra $10,000 and ask her to help me buy a phone, since mine was waterlogged and unusable. But the young woman just waved off the extra charge. After everyone left, I checked the time and dialed a number. Are you back in the country? Just got off the plane. Should I come see you? His voice sounded a little tired, clearly having rushed back. I've changed my mind. Get ready. Hearing my words, he sounded a bit flustered at first, but after hearing my plan, he was silent for a long time. You're crazy. My body was still very weak, so I took another nap in the afternoon. After dinner, David walked in holding the printed divorce agreement. Does it have to be this way? He stood about 2 meters away, watching me silently. My expression was indifferent. You think I didn't know about the child? Let's just save each other some face. David tacitly handed the divorce agreement to me. The content was fine. There were 3 copies. After signing, I kept one for myself. We agreed to go to City Hall tomorrow. As he was leaving, David looked at me. It looked like he was about to say something, but when his eyes landed on the white Birkin I had just bought on the small table, his expression suddenly turned cold, and he turned and left. No sooner had David left than a man with a small mustache, in his 30s, wearing a black tailored suit, walked into the hospital room. He didn't say a word. He took out a small knife and started peeling an apple. Didn't we agree to meet later? I was surprised to see him arrive early. The man gave me a displeased look. You managed to get yourself into the hospital after just one day. If I didn't come now, who knows what would happen to you? The man's name was Robert. He was my childhood playmate, a very good friend, and the person I called. He moved abroad with his parents when he was 18. We had met a few times since then, but being thousands of miles apart, some things had gradually faded with time. The real turning point happened when my parents passed away. Losing 2 loved ones in the same year, one after the other, was a blow I couldn't bear. I became extremely withdrawn and took a long leave from school. Robert knew about it, but his own family was having problems at the time, and he was completely overwhelmed. At that time, I desperately needed someone to lean on, and by chance, David appeared. Before that, we were just acquaintances. Under his meticulous care for 3 months, we became a couple. As fate would have it, Robert returned at that very moment. I remember he had a dark expression all night that day. A few days later, he handed me a stack of documents. He had investigated David. I was furious at the time. It was also that day I learned that he had feelings for me, too. Unfortunately, it was already too late. I found out about David's Chloe from those documents. Robert also warned me then that this person was trouble, that he was after my money. But I was too naive at the time. The day before my wedding, Robert sent me a text message saying you would wait for me forever, and if I ever wanted to come back, I should contact him immediately. I felt that was unfair to him, so I didn't contact him again after that. Who would have thought that fool didn't get married? A couple of years ago, Robert's parents came back and talked to me a few times, implying they wanted me to persuade Robert, but there was nothing I could do about something like that. When you said you changed your mind, you scared me to death. I thought you regretted it. Robert handed me the apple he had finished peeling. How could I? I just felt the previous plan was too easy on those 3. The first time I called Robert, I was thinking of parting ways amicably. Unfortunately, they didn't know when to stop. Should we change the plan? If not, using a stand-in would work too. As soon as Robert finished speaking, I shook my head decisively. He knew my personality and didn't try to persuade me further. Robert was worried something else might happen, so he slept on the sofa with a blanket. When the nurse came to change my medication in the middle of the night, he checked everything carefully, afraid someone might have tampered with it. Soon, it was the next morning. After a day of treatment and rest, I had regained some of my energy. After breakfast, I put on a coat and went with Robert to the underground parking garage. The car was mine. David hadn't driven it away when he left last night. I walked towards the spot he mentioned. I hadn't gone far when a car, not too far away, suddenly turned on its headlights and sped towards me, engine roaring. Seeing this, Robert quickly grabbed me, spun around, and shielded me with his body. Crash! Just as the car was less than 2 meters away from us, it suddenly crashed into cars pulling out of parking spaces on either side. Get him! Robert turned his head, his eyes fierce, and pointed at the driver in the other car. The driver had originally tried to run, but 2 more cars sped out from behind, trapping him tightly in the middle. After getting out of the car, the driver pulled out a knife, ready to fight for his life. But the men Robert had brought were skilled, and they quickly subdued him on the ground. Secure the scene and wait for the police. After giving instructions, Robert took me and got into a fully loaded Maybach. Although I had guessed what was about to happen and prepared in advance, my heart still raced when it occurred. That bag yesterday? I was deliberately provoking Chloe. I guessed she would try to retaliate against me. Not just me, but Ethan and David were also on her list. I just moved the timeline up a bit. The person who attacked us was the biological father of the child Chloe was carrying. He was unemployed. This time, he was targeting David's assets. I didn't know how they originally planned to deal with me, but my early reveal made them realize most of the money was with me. That could only lead to one outcome: they would try to get rid of me before David and I separated. People will do anything for money. The night they locked me on the balcony, I figured everything out. Don't worry, I'm here. Noticing my distress, Robert held me tightly. I never expected that after everything, it would be him by my side in the end. When we arrived at City Hall, David was already waiting by the entrance. He looked surprised when he saw me get out of the car. It wasn't until he saw Robert standing beside me that his expression returned to normal. The company still needs funds to operate. There isn't enough in the accounts. I need another $1 million. Give it to me, and we'll get divorced. David immediately started making an outrageous demand. I was about to refuse, but Robert stopped me first. Fine. $1 million it is. As soon as the divorce is finalized, the money will be in your account. Robert didn't want to haggle over trivial matters. At first, David hesitated, but then he saw the bodyguards behind Robert and the fully loaded Maybach parked by the road. The divorce went through exceptionally smoothly. David got the extra money he wanted. I prepared a gift for you. It's in the attic storage. This was the last thing I said to David before we parted ways. The gift I left for David was the azoospermia diagnosis report issued 2 days prior. He might not believe it, but the result wouldn't change. To prevent today's incident from happening again, I moved into Robert's new house/estate. My body still needed some time to recover. He told me to rest completely and leave everything else for him to handle. My body was somewhat damaged by the cold that night, and I felt depleted. I didn't have much energy for the next few days. Meanwhile, David went to the hospital again. The results were back. Just like the diagnosis report I gave him, he was infertile. Tell me, whose child is it? David found Chloe and questioned her hoarsely. Whose else could it be but yours? Are you going to doubt even this? The car crash was suspicious. Everyone except Ethan had been interrogated and investigated. Chloe thought David had heard something during the interrogation. She wouldn't admit anything, no matter what. You slut! David had completely lost his former tenderness and slapped her directly across the face. The blow was incredibly powerful, and Chloe was knocked straight to the ground. She hadn't expected him to hit her. Are you crazy? Chloe covered her stinging cheek and stared at David, her face full of disbelief. Am I crazy, or are you, you shameless slut? David said, taking out the azoospermia diagnosis report from his pocket. At first, Chloe didn't think much of it, but when she saw the words azoospermia, she froze. David, listen to me, it's not what you think. Chloe tried to explain, but David wasn't listening. He grabbed her from the ground and slammed her violently against the wall. Tell me, whose child is it? David had gone mad. He hadn't expected to lose so much, only for it to be a false joy in the end. David also hadn't expected that the person he loved most would deceive him in such a way. He couldn't accept this outcome, and even less that he was the infertile one. Although he got an extra $1 million, the value of the things Ethan destroyed that night far exceeded that amount. As Ethan's guardian, he would have to pay compensation. At the company, he fired his accountant and unfroze the accounts, but suppliers collectively broke their contracts. Unable to deliver on time, he was facing massive compensation claims. David could sue, but the waiting period alone would be enough to ruin him. With the added compensation, even if he won, he'd be burdened with huge debts. Uncle David, why are you treating Aunt Chloe like this? Are you as black-hearted as Aunt Sarah? Chloe was hit, and Ethan questioned him bossily. Black-hearted? If I were black-hearted, would you little beasts still be alive today? Throwing Chloe aside, David grabbed Ethan by the neck and lifted him into the air. You ungrateful brat! This slut's only been here a few days, and you're already siding with her? You probably don't know this, but this slut was planning to dump you back in that small town and leave you to fend for yourself. If you hadn't been egging things on and constantly pushing me to kick Sarah out, how would things have ended up like this today? You say we're black-hearted? When you were sick, Sarah worked tirelessly to take care of you, she saved your life. And you treated her like that for someone you just met a few days ago? What color is your heart? Calling you an ungrateful wretch is a compliment. Ethan's face was turning blue as David choked him. He frantically hit David's arm, but it was no use. Just as he was about to be choked to death, Chloe grabbed a nearby chair and smashed it against David's back. But her strength as a woman was limited. David's body only jolted, and he turned to look at her. Chloe tried to escape, but the door was already locked. They had moved out of the house/estate and were living in a regular apartment. There was nowhere to run. Chloe had a miscarriage. David was arrested for assault and abuse and was jailed for 3 months. When he got out, David saw Ethan at the entrance, dressed in rags like a beggar, and smiled. Sarah was driven away by you. We'll settle this score later. David ruffled Ethan's hair and led him out of the police station. Because the child was gone, the father lost hope. To reduce his sentence, he eventually testified against Chloe. They were sentenced to 15 and 18 years, respectively. I heard David kept looking for me later. He even applied for a security guard job in the upscale neighborhood, but I had sold the house there a long time ago. 2 years later, as Robert and I were walking on an island, my phone suddenly rang. It was a picture sent by a friend from back home. The picture showed 2 extremely disheveled men, one big and one small, rummaging through trash cans by the roadside. What a good day! If I weren't pregnant, I'd have a couple of drinks to celebrate.